hope you're ready, because we're going now. I like how you said you're ready, and your head's down. Like, hey guys.
It's right here. Hey guys.
What's going
welcome.
on?
So, we have the pleasure of coming to you on this cool, breezy day in Oregon where it was reached a peak of 90 degrees?
70 million.
92 degrees? I can't recall.
I tried to stay out of it.
But now it's weird because anything under 100 degrees, and I feel like I'm really appreciative.
Yeah, it feels like cheating if it's under 115.
Yeah, it feels like we're getting away with something if it's under a certain temperature. We're doing real good. We're doing real good.
Yeah, we're gaming the system. When
We
your air
are.
conditioner can keep up,
Oh my
then
gosh, I know.
you know
So-
life's good.
I don't know anybody out there listening that had this happen to them, but on the 4th of July, I had my AC unit go out. And that day in particular was like 100, I think it was close to 100 degrees that day, if not.
I don't know. I've not heard this story. What happened? Like,
Yeah, you
did
didn't
it
hear about
just- Did it just
So-
stop?
The night, July 3rd, we went to
I did hear
bed,
about this.
and the AC unit was not really working well. And like it'd been like trying to get the temperature down to 70 or something for like 5 hours. I'm like, this isn't right. What's going
Right.
on? So I go outside and I look and I see that AC unit, of course, had just turned into a big block of ice. I'm like, what? So I go into the garage, check my HVAC unit, and the fan or the pump isn't pushing the air through. I'm like,
Ooh.
oh no. So I end up going to opening it up, and I called around, and of course, it's the 4th of July, the morning of the 4th of July, and I call around, and nobody's
cheap service
answering.
call.
Nobody's open. Yeah. And so they're like, okay, well, we can send it to an emergency HVAC unit call. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, whatever you got to do. Like, we had a bunch of family friends coming over. I was like, okay, we got to get this taken care of. So nobody answers. Finally, somebody calls me back. Santiam Heating. Huge shout out to Santiam Heating and Cooling, I think, or Santiam Heating.
That makes
something
sense.
like that.
I hope it's just not heating, because they didn't need to show up on that day if it was just heating.
Let me see. I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna young Jamie it real quick. They Santiam Heating and Sheet Metal. So they do it all.
All
Heating
right.
and sheet metal and cooling. So anyways, I called the guy up early in the morning, like 7 o'clock, and he's like, hey, yeah, he's like, sounds like you got something going out. He's like, listen, go into your HVAC unit and tell me what you see. Or he's like, take a picture of it. So I take the control board, a door off, and I take a picture of everything. And he's like, yeah, it looks like you got a capacitor that's out. I'm like, oh, okay. And he's
You're
like,
like,
yeah. So
I was going to switch those last
I
week.
was going to say,
and-
the flux capacitor. That's what I was going to say it was. So he's like, listen, I'm going to walk you through it. If you feel comfortable doing this, I'm going to tell you how to take that part off, and then you can drive it down to our main shop where the owner is there this morning, and
They'll give you one?
we'll just sell you for the price of the part. He's like, otherwise it'd probably be about like $600-$700 for me to come out at least on the 4th of July.
Can we go into the capacitor installing business?
Yeah. Well, and it wasn't even the part that was expensive. It was the holiday pay, emergency call visit, the labor, which is like
But
triple pay or whatever.
Wouldn't you give up your 4th of July to make $600 a call?
Well, and he wouldn't have even given up his 4th of July, right? Because it was like 7 in the morning. It would have taken him maybe.
No, I know. But
2
imagine if you
hours,
did those
maybe an
all
hour.
day long at $600 a pop.
Yeah, he'd been flush.
I would celebrate the 4th of July on the 5th of July.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
I would change 4th of July to Cinco de Mayo for that.
I would make it a national changing holiday for myself.
Right.
So anyways, he's like, yeah, just go down to the local shop. I'll get you this capacitor, and then you just drive back to your house, plug it in. He's like, it's 90% chance that that's the problem. I'm
Were
like,
you driving
okay.
down the road holding that thing going, just don't go over 88. Just don't go
Yeah.
over 88.
Yeah. I was like, oh my God. So I get there, the guy the owner, he's like, yeah, it looks like this is the part. He's like, just throws me the part. I'm like, hey, it was like, I can't remember how much it was. It was cheap. It was like maybe like $40 or something like that, or I can't remember.
Sounds
But
about right.
I'm like, oh, listen, dude, I appreciate you guys being here. I give him 50. I said, listen, I don't want your receipt. You just take that cash money. Thank you so much. Like, you're my hero, literally. So then I take it back to the house, install it, kicks back on,
It'd be funny if you
and
like did all that and you plugged it in and it was the wrong one. Like you paid him extra for the wrong
I know
piece.
I thought about that when I was driving home. I was like, what if I paid extra for the wrong part? But
Whoops.
then, but then I was like, well, it was nice enough for him to at least be there on the 4th of July to give me the part. So I was
Right.
like, that's still pretty cool. That's still pretty cool.
Right.
So, anyways, but what I heard was I was surprised by how many people's AC units went out during that time.
Well,
A
yeah.
ton.
I mean, they're just all of a sudden taxed. I was reading in like our area for how hot it gets. They usually go off like the last 10 years average of heat to figure out what you need for a system. And they
Mm,
will figure out like around here, you need about 20 degrees to get down to normal because we usually don't go past 90. But if you can cool to
right.
70, you're good, right?
Yeah, totally.
Well, it's
Yeah.
just you go 20 above that and now you can only cool to 90.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah.
yeah, so no systems can keep up. Whereas in the South, they're like, well, you've got to cool 40 degrees. And so their systems are set up differently. There's usually a system per floor. And so they like
Right.
double up. We don't usually need that. But I guess a lot of places now are starting to bid them different
Smart
because they're like,
because
well,
it
we're
doesn't
in it.
seem like it's getting cooler.
No, and it was actually funny. It was like during that time, I was like, man, is this what we're in for forever? And I watched a video that it was a really cool graphic. It showed like the droughts and heat of the United States over the last 100 years that's been recorded.
Hmm.
And we've had like 4 times in the last 100 years that have done this very thing. And you could see the drought move from like north to south. You know, they had that whole K Falls thing going on that we still haven't seen
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
bubble pop. Um, and it was really interesting to see. And it only lasted like 3, 4, 5 years, and then it would be back to normal. Um, and it's done it like we're in like the fourth or fifth in the last 100 years where it's done
I
something
have
like
seen
this.
that, but I also saw that the extremes of the waves are getting greater as well, like the
Yeah.
temperatures being reached. So like it's true, it is a cycle. Then and I have seen the cycle
Mhm.
map, but then I also saw studies showing the degrees of temperatures are getting more,
So
have been
some
steadily
of that
increasing as well.
too, and maybe that's true, but some of it could be explained, at least a fraction of it, is that a lot of places where they take those levels is in cities and they've only gotten larger, and so that changes the temperature fluctuation based on just sheer size of population in that area.
Right.
So you're taking that
But
reading in
that
the
does
same
affect
place,
that area,
right? But a
right?
hundred years ago,
Yeah.
taking it in Portland doesn't mean that the whole state is doing that. Is what I'm saying. Like so, who
Yeah, I
knows?
was interested to see. I didn't check. Did you check during the heat wave here what the temperatures like were in Bend? Like were they as hot as we were?
I didn't look. Could ask. We have some friends over there.
I didn't even
I
think to
mean, you could
look
go
if they
back
were
and look
getting into
too.
the hundreds
They were pretty
like we
warm
were.
though. But again, they're used to higher heat, and so a lot of their systems are set up a little bit better than we are over here in the valley, where it's
Yeah.
usually pretty moderate. So
Yeah.
we'll see. We're supposed to have
It
another
was
heat
rough.
wave coming up, so I don't think it's supposed to be as bad. That was just like the way that it hit with the jet stream, like going over the top of us and everything. Like it just was like
Wild.
a clash of
Horrible.
events.
The amazing amount of what would you call meteorological events that have taken place
Oh
in
yeah, in the
the
last
in
year. Yeah,
Oregon in the past 2 years have been
nuts.
so horrible. So horrible. The
Yeah.
ice storms to the fires to the heat waves to the I don't think we had any. We did have a crazy windstorm actually a little while ago,
It was
but
never that bad here,
it
but
wasn't terrible here
mm-mm.
compared.
No
So
one
yeah,
lost a
it's
trampoline or anything like other
no, luckily,
states. So.
luckily. Um,
So
so
let's
some
speaking of
crazy.
well, hang on. So speaking of local, I want to start local before we move national because we got some weird national stuff to talk or not national.
Totally. Let
Sorry.
me give a quick shout out. I want to give a shout out to
Yes.
Megan Henry. I just saw she logged on. How's it going, Megan? Good times. Okay, so national news. What do you got?
Not national, sorry, our state news. We'll start
Oh,
here.
okay.
Because we were talking about this beforehand. I saw this article kind of come across some stuff I was reading. And I don't usually read like Oregon's news. It usually tends to be pretty either boring or just,
Annoying.
depressing or
Yeah.
annoying. Yeah. It's all owned by the same place. And so it's like they all kind of pretend like they're not, but they all just kind of regurgitate what each other do. But this was a kind of an interesting report and not super shocking given that we've seen reports of like their SWAT teams and emergency response teams all like resigning in unison. But Portland is now down to one full-time traffic officer. Now it's can be kind of misleading. Doesn't mean there's only one. It just means there's one full-time that's his job. The others have been reassigned into positions where people either have retired or quit. But the force has dropped by about 50% in this last year. And we were talking about like citations, traffic citations in Portland alone have dropped from a little over 3,000 down to like 700 and some change just this year. And people are complaining that there's like street races going on and people speeding, people like driving on sidewalks, like weird stuff going on. They're like, what can we do? And the police are like, there's
Driving
not
on
much. It's like
sidewalks.
there's not much we can do. Yeah, they're talking about like people passing in bike lanes and just like bonkers going crazy. Which funny, I don't know who I was talking to. Oh, someone last night was mentioning that they had a friend that the way they got out of tickets in when they lived in Portland,
Hmm.
like, and I'm not talking, so like when I say this, imagine 2 a.m. getting pulled over for speeding down the median, racing your friend, right? Every time he got pulled over, he would say, I'm sorry, officer, I'm on the way to church. And he never got a ticket. They like always would let him off,
Interesting.
even at like 2 a.m. Like, who's, and that's
Well,
kind of, I would
I
question,
don't know many
I would
churches that are
question
open at 2
the
a.m.
religious establishment that you're attending at 2 a.m. The only thing I could
Right.
think of is like some sort of youth lock-in that they're
Well,
doing where they're not going to let you out anyway, let alone to go speed racing.
or it must have been like the police officer thought it was a funny joke, and he's like, "Okay, that's fair. That's funny.
This is
That's
true.
funny enough. I haven't heard something that funny in a while, so I'll let you off for that." Like every now and then, police officers get so used to certain routines that when they hear something funny, they're just like, "All right, you won. You get a
Right.
free pass for this one."
Yeah, seriously. But I guess it was like his go-to excuse just all the time, no matter what time of day. So,
That's
and that
crazy.
to say like the Salem area, I don't know if you've driven past Market Street recently, but did
Did
you
it look
see that?
better?
Well, they cleaned the whole thing out. It's like nothing happened.
Nice.
So for those of you who
Really?
don't know, Market Street has been like the homeless camp for Salem, and
Hmm.
it like grew so big that it was like started at the off ramp all the way underneath, and it looks like I remember it like when I was a kid. Like it's just
Wow.
clean, like just nothing
Wow.
there. I heard a rumor that it may not be forever, that they just did it because the Iron Man was being hosted here. And they wanted, that's like the main exit for all that to
Oh,
take place. And they wanted to look good.
oh, really?
So it's like, for
Fascinating. A little sketchy.
those of you that invite people over for dinner
Yeah,
and
you
you,
clean
and
your
your
house a
house
little
is
bit.
always super dirty, but you clean it up and everyone knows anyway. That's what happened in Salem, I believe. So,
Interesting. Did you hear anything about the Iron Man events in Salem, how they went, or any
no.
type of? I worked the day before the Iron Man events, and I had
Hmm.
some partners that were working that day, and they were all talking about how many heat exhaustion patients they were going to have, or how
Oh,
many
really?
injuries. They're fast, yeah, but how many injuries, because it was like, an Ironman's a pretty big event, and how
Right.
many like
And they're
traumas
swimming
from
in the
bike
Willamette,
accidents.
so there's
I
no way they.
know. Oh,
That's
that's so
that's like probably
gross.
the only way to get an STD just from a river is to swim in the Willamette.
I've never treated somebody for an STD out of the Willamette. However, I have treated many people from drinking water out of the Willamette
But here's a
and
question: would you
intestinal
be
parasites.
shocked if someone had an STD from the Willamette?
If there was ever to be a situation where that water pathway was, it wouldn't be called an, well, it
It
wouldn't be
wouldn't be
called an
called an
STD. It'd
STD,
be
but
called
you
a
would think it was. You'd be
WTD.
like,
It'd be a
"Are you
it'd
sure
be a
you just
WTD.
went swimming in the Willamette?" I don't know if I
Right,
believe
right,
him.
right,
Like,
right.
no, seriously, that's all I did.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I've got stories, but I can't say I've had anybody blame it on a waterway yet.
right.
Not that type of
But if
waterway.
one is gonna do it, it's gonna be the Willamette.
It's gonna
Like,
be the Willamette. It's bad.
it's gonna
It's
set the
bad.
bar for all of them.
It's grody.
Oh my
Oh
gosh.
man. Well,
Yes.
so that was local news. Something interesting that is coming to kind of a little bit bite Britain a little bit is what's been going on with the Brexit. I don't know if you pretty much most people in listen to this would recall what the Brexit was. Basically, it was Britain deciding to break from the EU and the
Hmm.
EU was basically they all had these trade agreements going on. But now in a lot of the stores, especially more so across Scotland, which is the northern part of Great Britain, um,
Why do they call it the
is
pingdemic?
I'm not sure.
It's definitely in quotes.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It's wild.
However, basically, there's a big food shortage supply in northern England or northern Great Britain or England. I can't remember exactly how you would say it, but there's
Right.
a food shortage going on because a lot of the people that would previously bring supplies from other countries
Hmm.
can't do it now. They have to get it through London or through some of the major ports, and then those major ports distribute it to other parts of Great Britain
Hmm.
because they're trying to prevent this trade from the EU from basically being disfavorable as far as prices and all that stuff. But these other countries are saying, hey, we're not going to trade with you then because we don't want to get a bad deal or we don't want to get a price that we don't agree with. And so Britain's trying to figure out how they're going to give supplies and food to their other country states, I guess is what you'd call them. I'm not exactly sure how you would call them, but
Right.
it's an interesting thing because I do see the U.S. have a need in the future to start becoming a little bit more self-sufficient with some manufacturing and some
Yep.
production and produce and stuff like that. So it's kind of a little bit of a foreshadowing almost to the point of like saying, hey, we see that there's a food supply shortage in this situation. How do we counteract that and make it okay? And how do we make it work in our country?
Right.
And I'm not saying exactly the solution to the Brexit is the solution that we'll find with our trade issues with Eastern countries, um, but in general, I think this is a good kind of on a lower level example of something that could affect us in the future.
For sure. I
Kind of
think that could
interesting.
affect a lot of different countries. Well, I think we've seen similar things affect a lot of countries because the shipping costs went up like 12 times or more. I mean, it used to be like what I was watching a market guy talk about. He's like, "Hey, we're going to talk about shipping costs," and I was like, "This is a little weird." I almost paused the video and just went on to something else because like that doesn't really interest me. But then he showed that the shipping costs went from like $900 a container up to over $12,000 a container in a matter of like 3 months.
Whoa,
And
whoa,
so
1,200 to 12,000.
900 to
Whoa.
12,000. So, and you can track it, and people would pay, like kind of futures on shipping. But as those ran out, and they kind of like artificially kept prices low. I mean, our prices in our trade rely on cheap shipping. So if it's all of a sudden 12 times what it was, that's not good. So that's where we started to see some of our food prices skyrocket here. And it's because a lot
Mm,
of that stuff, regardless of there's some things you can buy local, but there's some things that, pretty much all the center aisles of the grocery store could come from really anywhere. and
mm.
we rely on a lot of that stuff to be cheaply shipped because we don't do it ourselves
Mm.
predominantly. And that's a
Yep,
problem. And
it's a
I think
problem.
it's something to look at and for the future. And I think regardless of this issue, I think that's something that we all should look into because what if we head into another world war? Like we're just counting on the fact that 90+% of our stuff is made outside of this country. That seems like kind of a bad bet to make because it seems like every day we wake up that there's like another country in turmoil or something's going on. You're like, whoa, that seems. I mean, that's a little radical from where we're at right now, but you can almost like envision that happening if a feather tips the scale one direction. Um, you have to start. I don't know. I start thinking about that stuff, and maybe I'm a little too skittish, but I
Dude,
think.
it's all there's a big game being played at a super high level,
Hmm.
right? With trade and foreign policy and um, and reliance on certain countries, right?
Right.
And there's super high stakes, and whichever country comes out on top for trade and supplies and production and is able to have the other countries rely on them the most is a country that's going to be in control essentially.
Well, or you could look at that another way. Yeah, I could see some of that, but I think a lot of it needs to be for building up your own country. Like I think we should all try. I think
Oh
you know,
yes,
just
yes.
like we should all try to help the community around us. I think predominantly our energy should be into our own family and setting our own family up. and then whatever bleeds over, helping those around us. Like I think that there's a generosity that does need to happen for sure, and I think there's a principle in that that applies to no matter where you fall on the scale of whatever. Um, but yeah, I think that countries should do it to benefit themselves.
I think that there needs to be, like you were saying, essentially a country needs to develop an infrastructure that can provide for itself, especially in times of crisis, right? And we have shown in this past 2020 and kind of leading up to it that we are in a deficit of being able to provide goods, essential goods, to
And pay our
our own
debts.
country and pay our debts. But I mean, even if we dissolved our debts and didn't acknowledge external debts in particular,
Mhm.
we still would be at a place where we would rely on foreign countries that in some ways are hostile to us to be able to provide goods for us to be able to function as a society.
And that's the things that surprise me, that when, like, so, whether or not I think eventually we should look at other types of energy, and maybe it's not just electricity, maybe we produce electricity a different way. But until
Nuclear.
then, but until then, like, we do use oil for shipping and everything. We're not going to switch tomorrow at all. And we stopped our pipeline here, and I hadn't really thought about this, but someone brought it up the other night, that we then approved helping build a pipeline somewhere else, but it was to create cheap shipping. So that's still kind of going back to that old way of thinking, is like, well, if we can artificially create cheap shipping, then we can get our
Mm.
goods cheaper. But that's not how you think when you're a country that's trillions of dollars in debt. I was looking. I didn't know this site existed, and I'll try to find it and put it in our show notes. But it's the World Debt Calculator, and it's
Oh, I
real
hate it.
time.
I've seen it. I hate it.
What's amazingly weird is if you look down, like in the bottom right, I think it is, it's starting to also show like cryptocurrency holdings and everything. Yeah.
Uh,
But our country, it's like $70,000 per person in our country in debt now. Um that's just the country, has put us into that. And it's like, that doesn't help anybody. And people are like, well, the rich could bail us out. Like, they're already paying a decent chunk. Like, if you look at what the top 1% pays, you can't
that's
tax them
crazy.
much more before they just leave. Like,
Oh, that's interesting. So I didn't know this. So yeah, so let's see. I'm looking at national debt. Okay, so I pulled this up, the U.S. debt clock.
yep.
Um, and so the U.S. is by far leading in debt, it looks like.
Oh yeah, by a
We're
lot.
at 28 trillion 468 billion. Um, the runner up, it looks like, on debt would be Japan, which is interesting. I would not have guessed Japan is the second in debt
Yeah. So
with
the part that I
14
found
trillion.
interesting, I have it up on our screen now, is if
But
you
their
look
debt to GDP ratio is even worse than ours.
if you look at the what's gone down, what's crazy is the dollar to crypto ratio in 2013 was 9,906 to 1, and now it's 14.83 to 1.
That
That's
is wild.
incredible. That means that regardless if you agree with it, with
So
cryptocurrency,
for every $14, there's one crypto. Is that what that
right?
means?
But in 2013, which is quite a few years after Bitcoin was created, there was, for every $9,906, there was one crypto dollar.
Go ahead and zoom in on that U.S. and Japan and China tally going
Uh,
on.
the world debt clocks.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
So it's interesting to see. I had no idea that Japan actually, this is interesting, per public debt to GDP, Japan is the country with the most debt, it looks like.
Oh yeah, I see that.
That's fascinating to me. I would have never guessed Japan in that situation. And then second place is China, or third place, excuse me. Third place is China.
Wow.
Um, but that's really shocking to me. I guess I just see Japan as all the car manufacturers and all the different tech companies,
But
and
here's
it just
here's
seems like they're a very productive and
here's what I want
hardworking
people to
country
focus
that.
on. So our U.S. national debt has crossed 28 trillion. Our debt per citizen is $85,659. That's what that comes out to.
What is the debt per citizen for Japan?
I don't know yet, but debt per taxpayer is 226,794. Um, and then you can look at right now. We're at 1960. We were 52% debt to GDP ratio. Now we're at 128%. Wild.
It's so
I don't
nuts.
know. I sat and stared at this for way too long. I don't know if it'll even give me the details for
Yeah, I was
those.
trying to find Japan. It
Yeah,
won't.
because
Won't give it to us.
I can't break it down.
Oh,
Probably
because
because
it's
we
called
have,
U.S. debt clock, so it's like it's
yeah,
focusing more on the U.S.
right. Anyway,
Crazy,
the,
crazy, crazy.
yeah.
Well, what's interesting is we I like I do like the Chinese people and I like the culture and I think it's a fascinating country and I would love to go there and I'd love to visit and see their sites and see the amazing kind of history there and explore. I really hope to be able to go there one day. Um, but Jordan and I were talking about the U.S. and China and this kind of feeling that there's a increasing tension between our two countries, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I was saying, like if it was a situation where China was influencing our country, but they were going to bring a positive net positive gain to the country, um, then I would probably have a little bit more respect for them for the fact that they're outmaneuvering us politically and outmaneuvering us socially as far as like the way that they have managed big media in particular.
Hmm.
Um, but
That's not the case though.
but that's not the case, unfortunately.
Well, and
Um,
what we were talking about is the people. It's not about, like, as you said, like, I love the Chinese people because most of the people there, they want some of the same freedoms that we enjoy here, and a lot of them have come. Like when I went to DC, there was a lot of them that were in the streets saying, "Hey, be careful," and they're right. Like, we should always be careful. It doesn't matter who's in there. Like, be careful. Keep the freedom you have. Like, it's easy to lose, and they were in a place that wasn't, that didn't have that. So for the most of the people that are there, like, they're amazing people, and but it's their government that's like squashing them, that's not allowing them to shine.
they want to be in control. Yeah. It was actually interesting. There was a recent uh, talk that took place between our U.S. Deputy Secretary of State and a Chinese state, counselor or foreign minister, and he kind of said the same thing in the past towards Australia a little bit,
Hmm.
but he said to during this press conference, he said, he accused the United States of creating imaginary enemy out of China right now. And I thought that was a really interesting play because it does kind of spread this dissent that you can see amongst U.S. News and politics and social media of there being like a facade to
Hmm.
any type of message. And the message of China wants to spread is, hey, almost like it's racist to go against the Chinese party or the CCP because it's an imaginary enemy and you're persecuting us. I can just see it becoming this like social play that
Well,
the
they kind of
Chinese
did the same
government is
thing.
going to be doing.
They were saying that to Australia too. Like, they just don't want people to say things bad about them, and
And that's
that's
the thing, like we're not saying it's bad about the Chinese people,
no,
but
not
about
at
the
all.
way and the policies of the government and the restrictions towards the people. Like I want to be an advocate for the Chinese people.
Right. Well, it's a change of ownership, and it's frightening how many people here, and you kind of see the trend here of, like, I like the fact that we can own a home. I like the fact that we can own a vehicle and that you can sell it, like you have an ownership in it. But we have people that are pushing this whole idea of a rental society, and you don't own anything and you rent. And we're seeing like institutions like we talked about a few weeks ago that are buying up houses. Like, they don't want you to send those love notes in because they want to be able to buy those houses, and they're buying them at overpriced
Oh,
rates because
wow.
they know that eventually they'll be able to, if they can be like the big renter, that's going to be the market, because they don't want you to own. They want to nickel and dime you to death And it's again, it just kind of goes back to that control ownership. If you do it right and do it with responsibility and responsible like leveraging and moves, is is a freedom, and they want to take that away. And that's a lot of what they've removed from the people in China is you don't own anything. Even if you do own it, you don't own it. Like the people that look like they're in power and happy are just like they're just richer, enslaved to the system. And some of them like it, some of them want it, you know. Um,
Yeah.
but I can tell you, I would, if I was betting, I would say a predominant amount of people aren't happy with the current system.
And I think it's also a bit of, and this is where I think people that have more of a libertarian perspective
Hmm.
see and get kind of concerned when they see governmental um, oversight in a lot of areas within the US, and they get concerned that it's a slippery slope of government having so much control or say in certain ownership aspects and policies. And there's a little bit of a concern in that area because they see that other countries slide pretty quickly into this government kind of run
Real
system.
quick, real
Yeah.
quick too. Yeah, and I think that that is something I would love to see. I've talked. I don't know if we've talked about it on here at all, but I think that like we have these rights that we have defined in our constitution, right? I think there should be one added, and I think that should be a right to a value, right to store value. And I was watching like a short clip today, and Elon Musk, which I have some beefs with him recently, but and it has nothing to do with Bitcoin at all. But um, he said that money is just a database anymore. And so people that are
Right.
like, oh, cryptocurrency is just whatever, your dollar isn't backed by anything. In fact, almost no country's dollar is backed by anything. It's just, it's backed by the fact that it's like there. That's it.
Hmm.
But he was saying it's just a database that shows a store of work. It's just a store of work and effort. That's it.
Hmm.
And so, and this was back when he was like not pro Bitcoin. But then he realized, oh, I could like make money on my store of work.
Oh
And
yeah.
he started investing in it and having his companies invest in it. Um, and then recently he did something I will tell you real quick what his beef what my beef with him recently is, and that is that he was working with the Chinese Communist Party to have them. I think I told you this when we were driving the
I no,
car
I
the other
think
day.
I
That
remember something about this
he
in the
was
news.
working with them to suppress any posts on their social media that speaks poorly of Tesla.
No.
Yes.
No, 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 no. That seems like
Yes.
there's more to that.
Nope.
That's hard for me to accept.
Yeah. I'll have to find it after this, but it for sure. That's one of the big beefs that people have with right now is that he was working with Chinese Communist Party to suppress posts in China that was negative about Tesla.
That seems strange that he would admit to that too.
He didn't. He got caught doing it. Like it's on record. He didn't like say this is what I did, obviously, but people have record of it now
Hmm.
that
Yeah, I
of
would
his
want to see
communication.
that because that seems like something people could say and then it could just turn into a storm of like people saying it but not actually having any actual facts
No, I
behind it.
watched a few different people that were reporting on it. Like, yeah.
Hmm. Interesting.
Anyway,
That'd be a bummer if true, man. For sure, bummer. Um, hopefully, yeah. Hopefully, the market responds to him if that's the way he was doing it, and doesn't encourage that.
so
Um,
speaking of international, stick international for just a second because I think you have
yeah.
one.
No, that's
Oh yeah, you know you just talked about that one. I was like,
yeah.
oh wait, maybe you had that one that was more relevant to this. Is that we talked a couple weeks ago about how El Salvador is made Bitcoin legal tender. It's supposed to
Right.
go live in September. There have been people now protesting this. They're protesting against them doing this, saying that they're forcing them to launder money and play the lottery because Bitcoin is too volatile, which a lot of people who are pro Bitcoin have said, yeah, that's probably true. But
Hmm.
regardless, it looks like they're trying to pass laws, go through things normally to try and get it suppressed. It has not worked yet. And so far, what a lot of people are suspecting, and we'll see in the coming weeks, but I wanted to share it here and hear your thoughts on this, is that there's a lot of countries who are going to try and fight back against the cryptocurrency market because they're going to try to digitize their own dollar or their own money to enter that space because then they can 100% track it. They can 100% add liquidity to it. They can create more tokens if they need to, just like they do now. And they can say, look, we're a cryptocurrency. But that is exactly not what it's about. But
Right.
so, all that to say, what's suspected that will happen, and we'll see in the coming weeks, months, is that El Salvador is gearing up to do the same thing, and they're going to create what's called a GBDC, which is a government-backed digital currency,
Hmm.
and it's rumored that it's going to be happening here in the States as well, and that it will be their own thing that they can now control. And that way, the reason why, and people might wonder, like, well, how is that different than what we're doing now? It's because they would use it on the same systems and transfer to those other currencies or securities, as they're calling them now, and they're in the battles of figuring out what they are now, is that they could track then your anonymous wallets and stores of value that you have so that they can control and or tax and or fine you for doing something that they don't perceive as right.
Right. They have access essentially to your funds.
Yes.
Essentially is what it is. Yeah, I mean, I think the entire appeal and safety net and benefit to cryptocurrency is when you have less governmental control. Like you have the ability to run a cryptocurrency, decentralize it from one nation controlling it, and if those nations' servers go down, it's okay. Um, I just think that yeah, it kind of goes against the entire uh, theology. I almost want to
Mm-hmm.
say ethos of cryptocurrency for a
Right.
government to control it,
Yeah, I
in
want
my
to keep talking
opinion.
about that, but I'm going to address what Gary just said. He said Monday night. Yes, we're on Monday nights right now. That's kind of where we're sitting for now,
Right.
unless someone's schedule is a little bit off, which is what happened last week, and we were on Wednesday. But then it was said we scheduled for Thursday, but we really were there Wednesday.
Yeah.
Um,
So usually we're Monday nights because it works better for uh, the family schedules.
mhm,
But occasionally we'll do different days of the week, but
right.
usually Mondays. Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Right, right, right,
We
right,
should
right,
figure that
right.
out ahead of time and just schedule them ahead of time instead of same day. That's just a thought. That's a
Yeah, yeah.
working idea.
It's a mature decision.
I
I don't
don't know. I don't know, guys. I don't know. Because a lot of, I
know.
mean, honestly, you guys are great. A lot of people just download and listen to it. So we're
Yeah,
mostly just here for the
to
hell
get
of
it
it.
recorded.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's fun for you guys to be able to comment. We love it.
Right.
We love
So
it.
so going back to that, like I do think in this next year we're going to see a lot of that regulation come down from a lot of different countries. And it's kind of a weird move. I don't doubt that we're going to go to something like that. I won't like it as much. I'll say that.
Mm,
There's a lot of U.S. dollar backed coins already that are technically like bank coins, but they're backed by $1 to $1, and they offer a 7.5% interest just sitting in U.S. dollars,
yeah.
which is more than any bank will give. And banks are getting mad and starting to sue in these different states, saying, "Hey, guess what? This isn't right." But these places are legitimately paying it, and people are. I mean, people might think, well, how much can you make off interest? And I'm like, well, every $60,000 you have in your savings account would earn you $500 a month at 7.5% interest. So, um, I would say
Right.
that for a lot of people, $500 a month, that's what, six
That's
grand a year.
that's that Biden check right now.
Yeah,
Or no wait. Or
that's
he's
six.
giving some people are getting $1,000 a month, right?
Right. Yeah, so like 6 grand a month or 6 grand a year extra
Yeah.
just in your savings, that your savings is growing without you doing a dang thing to it. That's pretty
That's
wild,
wild.
right? And
That's
that's a
wild.
decentralized system that has no control from the outside governing system. You do have to pay taxes on it, and I don't think that you shouldn't pay taxes on it at all. I think that you should follow those rules. That there's reasons why we have that. I think taxes should be lower, but right now stay legal and pay them. But I mean, I wouldn't complain with 7.5% interest on what I'm just have sitting there doing nothing anyway.
Yeah, I wouldn't be mad. I wouldn't be mad about that. Would
No,
not
and
be mad about that at
there's people
all.
doing that with like a lot more than 60 grand,
Yeah.
and they're doing well, just living on interest. So, sticking international, we don't have a lot of details on this because it's still unfolding. But I sent this to Curtis earlier, and I was like, "Does it feel like?" And I kind of mentioned this as we started. does it feel like every day we wake up, there's another country that just looks like it's like a feather tip away from something that could happen here or in countries that are near to us, like, our, moose friends up north? Um, is that in Tunisia just this week, their their president fired the prime minister, and it said in this original report, and this changed since they said this, said that he dissolved the Tunisian parliament and has accused the executive power of the country, or assumed executive power, and the movement is being described as a coup, which I could see that. I don't know the details of it. Maybe he has a good reason. Doesn't sound great. And is encouraging people to take to the streets, or it is encouraging people to take to the streets in rejection of this decision. So all of a sudden, people are out there doing this. The thing that changed is that he reportedly now has suspended Parliament, not fully dissolved it as of yet. But then just, I think it was today. Did I send you this one today? With that he
Yep.
has imposed a 1 month curfew, and the movement of people and vehicles is prohibited from 7 p.m. to 6 a.m.
Can you imagine if in the U.S. they made a curfew of no driving from 7 p.m. to 6 a.m.?
I can only imagine the pandemonium that would take place.
I mean, the degree of I mean, you just couldn't. You
No,
couldn't. You couldn't.
no.
I don't think it would work. I think the U.S. would have a full blown revolt, especially if it's in a situation like that where it's like the government is having difficulty, so we're gonna make a curfew. Like that wouldn't
Well,
never
I
fly.
think he's doing that because there's people taking to the streets in opposition of him. And so he's saying, between these hours, no movie for you guys. Which lends me to think it's probably is a coup. Like,
Right.
nobody does
Exactly.
that if it's like for the good, because otherwise you come out and you let the truth speak for itself, and you're like, hey guys, actually this is what's going on. We're going to be transparent for a moment. Like, you know, this is what's taking place. This is why. These are the things that I'm trying to protect you from. And then he'd probably have buy-in from a good amount of people if they realize, oh, he's actually looking out for us. But if they
Yeah.
don't have that defense,
Right.
say
The
there was a
people
country
support.
that like gated off the entire capital for a very long time and said that a lot of people were going to continue to try to bomb it and do a bunch of different stuff, and say people questioned that and they didn't like that. People don't like those things. Like they look at those things and they go, that looks weird. Like that
Yeah.
looks strange. If there's no reason to keep doing it, why do you keep doing it? Like, give us a reason.
I
Just
think the
hypothetically speaking, if that was going on somewhere, people would probably ask questions. They'd be like, what up?
in general, I think maybe it's as part of a reflection of our age, but obviously throughout the world and time and American history as well, there's been constant turmoil throughout the world, different countries,
Oh
world
yeah.
wars, national wars, civil wars. Obviously, it's not a new thing, but I think it's just strange to realize the frequency at which it happens and the consistency of certain types of world turmoil that's taking
Mm-hmm.
place at all times. And I don't think when I was younger I truly recognized or grasped the consistency of that. It's pretty
Well,
surprising to me.
and here's what's wild to think. Okay, so just think with me for a second.
Yeah.
Does this consistently happen in places where people are allowed to like freely choose to live how they want to live? Not hurt other people or anything. Like, you're not like allowing them to go around and be serial killers because they want to be serial killers. But it
Well,
seems like the most peaceful times are when you allow people
it's
to
there's two ways.
freely do business and freely move about.
Yeah, yes, for sure. There's two pathways. It's depending on the degree of development of the country. It
True.
seems like the more developed the country is, it tends to have more stability as far as whether or not there's hostile takeovers. Um,
Yes.
but it was interesting. There was a good quote. There was a what's that quote? Some maybe people out there listening would know it. There's a quote about like um, you don't need to imprison individuals. A government doesn't need to imprison people if they can imprison them through luxury and through
Oh yeah.
convenience or something like that. Um, Prison of Convenience, I think is what it was. Is that it? Um,
Like lull them to sleep or something. Yeah.
yeah.
It's
Um,
true. It's very very true, and
I
I
wish I
think
could find that
that's
quote.
a
Let me
lot
see if
of
I can
like
find
where we find ourselves at kind of an odd spot is that we have people that are old enough to remember our world at war, and we have people who have never experienced anything like that, and they're like, well, I've experienced like an uptick in school shootings. We're like, that's not what we're talking about here. It's like people will always be bad, and we can chat about that. But like, it that's not that's not what's going on. Like you, like this is the world we're talking about.
right the
Anyway,
world
and I think
exactly.
also it's just like news moves quicker, and also like I heard someone say once, it was like we can look at all these things and we can talk about it and everything. Unless you're there, you don't truly know what's going on.
Truth.
You're not even getting secondhand. It's not even like you paid to have a friend go and look for you. You're like, I went to DC. I could tell you what I saw. But that doesn't mean that I saw everything or knew what went on. You know what I mean? Like, and I could admit that. Be like, yeah, it doesn't look like anything like what people said. And it definitely was weird, and there's definitely some strange things that happened. But that's about it. Like, and that's more firsthand than somebody who just watched the news. They might think, well, there's a ton of crazy people, and everyone was lighting things on fire. Like, well, that's not what happened. Um, and but here it's like we hear what the news, what someone wrote in the crowd there, and maybe talked to a couple people, and then it went to the news, and then it went to the news, and went to the news, and now we got it. Like, so we kind of know some high level things, um, but it's hard to
Ah,
like make an opinion.
yeah. Shoot, I can't find it. But if somebody finds it while we're doing our shower thought or TILs, post it
Yeah,
on there. Okay, I'm good for TILs. How about you?
I think I am. Um,
All right. You know what
oh,
time it is, ladies and
right.
gentlemen. You know what time it is. I have three TILs, so I will go first.
Yes, you go first. That's your
In the
special number, 3.
spirit of the Olympics, today I learned that the medals of the Tokyo Olympic Games are made from metals recovered during recycling cell phones that have been collected since 2017. In
That's
Japan, that makes
crazy.
sense since they make so many great cell phones.
They probably throw them away a lot quicker than we do too.
Maybe. Or
I
recycle
remember
them quicker.
testing phones from Japan.
Uh-huh.
Um, they had like video conference calling phones long, long, long before we did, that were on that like you could do on the go.
Like
Like,
Skype kind of stuff.
hmm yeah,
Dang.
they flew through phones. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Hmm.
Um, and it's not uncommon for them to have like multiple that they just switch between, because then they've
That
had
is
that
interesting.
ability to do for a while. It's like just so here, our culture is driven by technology, or not driven by technology. Like we drive our culture drives what technology we have. Well, it
Hmm.
did. Maybe you could argue that it resulted differently, but for a lot longer, technology has driven culture.
That's interesting.
So
Hmm. Hmm. You could say that
regardless
to
of
a
any
degree
other
with you could say now it's
socioeconomical or
social
anything.
media which drives culture in the
Yeah, but
US.
yes, that is
Right.
true. Yeah, them it really was like the hardware for a while was what was
Fascinating.
driving them. Good or bad, like whatever.
Right.
I mean, there's goods and bads to all cultures. So, yeah. Okay. Today I learned the FICO credit score was started in 1989. Okay.
Okay.
And people used to be able to get approved for a mortgage with a letter of recommendation from their priest.
Whoa. Whoa. So that gave a lot more power to that priest. Those priests were ballers, man. They listen, I'll
Yeah.
give you a letter of recommendation, you give me 10K,
Do you think
man.
it was because like there was a lot more people that were dedicated to doing that and like being generous towards those institutions so that they could see, they knew that they would
I
see
don't
like
know.
they give these
I think
people
it
give
gave
10%, and so I know how much that 10% is,
yeah,
and so yeah, they can afford this.
that could be it. And I also think the priests were like, yeah, it incentivized people to go to church more because they knew that they had to get a letter from their pastor to be able to buy a house.
But also You wouldn't have a priest that they're like, well, I know how much they make, and they shouldn't buy that house, so they're never gonna give here anymore.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's fascinating. Fascinating.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. Today I learned the Romans, this is interesting actually. Today I learned the Romans believed eyelashes fell out from excessive sexual activity. So, women would use cosmetics to make their eyelashes look fuller and longer to demonstrate their chastity. It's like, that's fascinating.
It's weird how that's come
Hence,
full circle. People
I
now are like,
wonder,
she has a lot of makeup on.
she's got
Definitely,
too much
definitely
eyeliner
not full of
on here.
chastity.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I never heard that. All right, hit me.
Okay, today I learned the NBA Hall of Famer Shaquille O'Neal. This both shocked me and didn't shock me. Okay, only scored one three-pointer in his entire career.
That,
I would think that that number would be more than one just based on sheer luck. Because I think if I had an NBA career, I could score more than one three-pointer in my
yeah,
career.
but I
Like
guess
given
his like,
like I would be terrible, but just on accident from just
yeah,
like okay, it's my turn to shoot the ball, I could accidentally score more three-pointers than
he
that.
just never went in the three, man. He always went down to the net. That's crazy.
It's
All
cuz
right,
he was like he's at like eyebrow level with it.
right, yeah, close. Today I learned the hippo sweat actually contains a chemical that has an SPF factor to prevent them from getting sunburned. So I think we need to create hippo lotion and start
I wonder if that's
advertising it
like
as all natural sunscreen.
yeah, cuz I'm not a big fan of like sunscreen is pretty chemically and
Right.
there's some that we that are better now. But I wonder if that I wonder what that would be like. If you just like, what are you using for sunscreen today?
Hippo lotion.
Hippo Sweat SPF 15.
Yeah, how cool would that be? They kill a lot of people, but they also save lives. Think about that.
Also, what better would be how could we have our sweat like changed molecularly to have the
To
same
be hippo
properties?
sweat. That'd be awesome. CRISPR, baby. CRISPR. All right. Shower thoughts. I got four. How many you at?
That many.
Perf. You go first.
Okay. Wally is a movie about a character named Eve who gains forbidden knowledge, and as a result, humanity has to leave paradise to take up a life of hard manual labor.
Yep.
That's weird, right?
That's weird. Dude, I know I'm gonna mess it up, but I just gotta say that quote again. I'm gonna say it as many times as I can, probably. But
Or
what is
you're
it?
not going to say it as many times as you can.
Maybe. Maybe. Okay.
Eh? Eh?
Hard times create hard men. Hard men or tough men, either way. Hard men create easy times. Easy times create soft men. Soft men create hard times. Do you see the circle there?
That's weird.
It's kind of cool. I like it. All right. My
Is
first
that
shower
it's
thought.
easier just to say be a man.
Yeah.
Because it
Yeah, but
doesn't
then the
mean that you're
definition
just
the
always
definition of a
it's
man though is
knowing
always
it's
changing
knowing
too.
what to be at the right time. So like you like it's learning when to be hard. It's knowing when to be soft. Like
Right.
you're
Knowing when to
not
be
all
humble.
yeah, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Let's see. Shower thought. At some point in life, there was a stranger who got disappointed in how your voice sounded when you started talking. I don't
I'm
know
sure
why
it's
that.
everybody.
I don't know why, but I hate the sound of my voice. Like when I hear myself in a recording, I hate the sound of my voice, and
I
it
think
just
you've
makes me
heard
think.
yourself enough now that you
Oh, I'm
probably don't
sure.
even think about it. But
Yeah, I don't
yes,
think about it as much, but
I
I'm
think
sure
there's a
there's been
lot more people that I am aware of that sound annoying,
right, right.
and I don't care if they think I sound annoying.
Yeah. All
That's
right,
my
hit
shower
me.
thought. Okay, there isn't a single sport that wouldn't be made better by putting a giant angry bull in the middle.
Whoa. I mean,
No, no, no.
I mean,
There isn't one.
ping pong would be tough to put a ball in the
No.
middle.
It would be amazing. Can you imagine? It would run around chasing the people trying to hit the ball. Imagine like a bull infested game of
Okay, okay. Here's one.
cornhole.
Here's one that it definitely wouldn't work. Esports.
No, no, no. Just charging through, smashing computers as you're trying to play. I'd
Yeah.
watch that.
Okay, swimming. That'd be hilarious.
Yeah. Can you
Swimming.
imagine it swimming, thrashing through the pool?
Water polo. That's funny. All right. Um, so for better or for worse, professors essentially are like human programmers, and psychologists are like human debuggers. And
Yeah,
they can
I
be
think they
programmers
are
too.
now. I wish professors weren't that.
Right.
I wish that they were people that taught AI how to think for itself
Yeah.
instead of just telling it what to think.
All on board on that. Totally. All right, hit me.
Most of society is a scam designed to keep us preoccupied until we finally lay down and die.
Say that again.
Most of society is a scam designed to keep us preoccupied until we finally lay down and die.
That's an interesting thought.
Well, it kind of goes along with what you said earlier, like the whole
Right.
most things are set up to keep us preoccupied.
Interesting. Huh.
I was thinking we had a
Interesting.
doubled up showered thought there for a second, but I guess not.
No, no. Huh.
It's a lot
Okay,
more harsh
so
than the one you were thinking of because I know what you're thinking of. I just don't know exactly what it is. It's a lot more harsh than that, but it's along the same
yeah.
lines.
Yeah. All right, my next shower thought. If the world if flat earthers were correct and the world really was flat, you
Hmm.
could literally see anywhere in the world from the top of Mount Everest with a telescope.
Yeah, which proves it's not flat.
Right, exactly.
Oh yes, yeah. Well, you gotta enjoy at least their persistence and still thinking that
They
with
are
our
so
current
persistent.
technology.
It's wildly persistent.
We just sent the richest people up to check for us, and they all came back and said we got to see it. So I
But
mean,
also, it was also, I don't know if you watch those videos.
it wasn't that far. I mean,
It
it's
was
further than I
really
can jump, but
disappointing that they didn't have very good exterior cameras to show like really good pictures exteriorly. That made no sense to me at all.
yes, except for the amount of money that those people paid to do that. I mean, it was essentially like the world's most expensive fair ride that they went on, right?
Right. Right.
I would be a little miffed if they spent a lot of time getting video for everyone else that didn't pay for it.
Maybe, yeah, that could be. That could be. It might also though have been a good advertisement. But
Well, now
uh,
they're advertising that you can win a trip with him.
oh, really?
Hmm. Do
Ooh.
you want to go? I might
Yes,
win.
I'd go. I would go.
Haley won't
I
go
would
with me.
go.
I can tell you that now.
Yeah,
So
oh yeah.
Amador,
I don't
he's always says he doesn't want to do things, but he does want to. But I'm
he
not going
would
to
for
risk
sure
that.
go. He would for sure go.
Here's the
I would
thing: if
in a
I
blink of
won
an
that
eye.
and didn't take you,
Oh my
I
god.
would die. Like I would get
Oh my
killed.
god.
I would
Oh
be
my
shot.
god.
I would.
I think there's a term called suicided
Yeah, there is.
and
And here's what would happen. I would be like, yeah, I didn't bring him, and so I got to get out here, guys.
I
Like
can't
at the
go back.
top.
That's
Like
what you have to say. I
I
can't
gotta
go
go
back. I'm sorry. I can't go back.
as the pressure, you know.
It's more dangerous for you and for me to come back
Yeah.
to to sea level than it is for me to step out
Yeah,
here.
I stand a better chance jumping out here.
That's freaking hilarious. Oh,
Yes.
Amador says he would go. He just says
Yeah, but I'm
he's
not
like
taking
I
you. We
would
just
go.
we just went over that.
That's
We
hilarious.
sorry. If I had three,
Hilarious. So
I don't
funny.
yeah.
So funny.
Okay.
Um. All right. So your next shower thought.
Yeah, the reason the washing machine only ever eats one sock is because when it eats a pair, we don't notice.
Very true. Very true. Yeah, I never noticed a sock is going missing until an individual one is. The Gary says
Amador
there's
would
no
not
way he'd
go.
go.
He's afraid of heights. He would go. It's different.
I think he would. I think he would.
Yeah.
Also, Amador, I just need to give a shout out to Amador real quick. I almost made a comment on Amador's post he made today
Oh,
about
dude,
his
you saw that?
car and the kitty cat. And I really wanted to make a comment, Amador, and say um, that repair or that mechanic shop was perfect.
Perfect.
Perfect
I
that they
was going to
came.
comment and say, for a long time, we had a cat with a much shorter tail because we didn't know it was there.
Oh my gosh. Amador had a car, or he had a cat in his engine compartment of his car today. And it was after he had been driving, I believe, I think. And he opened the hood and he heard a cat meow. And then he opened it and saw the cat in there and then called a mechanic to come out and take apart his engine compartment to save the cat, which is, very courteous of you, man. Very
Yeah.
courteous of you. Okay, so I think it's my shower thought,
It
right?
was a kitten. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, I think this is my last shower thought.
Crazy.
Um, when an athlete doesn't quite win a medal, they weren't the hero of the story. They were the final boss.
Oh, yeah. That's a good point.
Isn't that kind of fun to think of?
I there okay, so Jerry Seinfeld's like one of his middle CDs was really good, and it talked about the Olympics. And he has this whole thing that he goes through about like how quick, like you train your entire life to go to the Olympics and you finally make it there. And if you get the silver medal, to explain to somebody how much you
Ugh.
lost by for a whole lifetime of training, it's like, nah. Like, nah. It's like, nah.
It,
That's how long. That's how long. I didn't train that much. Like that, just that teeny, it's a split
ugh.
second. Like, if I had let my nose grow a little bit, I would have won. Like, you
Ugh.
don't even know how close it was. But nobody
That's
knows. Like,
so horrible. That's so
yeah,
horrible of a thought. Yeah. Did you ever grow up thinking that if your parents had pushed you into a certain activity, you could have competed in the Olympics?
no,
Really?
not at all.
I
Not
have thought
talented
that
enough. What
countless
do you think
times.
you'd be good at?
I mean, there was like winter sports that I thought like I think I could have done some, or like
Like,
BMX sports. Like it would have been like a summer sport probably
but like,
actually.
okay, but at that level,
Yeah,
I
I
mean, I
am
know you, and I know you're
so
like you're really you're cool, and you're like
no
you're
no.
talented at some things,
I think
but I
it's
would
just a
never think
level
that I would
of
think, you know what? I saw him do this
dedication.
thing, and I was like, he'd be a pro BMXer.
I don't know
You know
what it
what?
would have been.
You know what?
I
I
was
don't know what it is about his
I,
stature, but he'd be really good in a half pipe.
I was
Like,
like, oh, I thought about like the archery kind of situation. Like, I just think like I'm not saying I would have made it, but I think
hmm
that I could have if I
like
would have had that
so, like the biathlon, like you'd be good at
try.
cross country skiing and shooting a pellet gun.
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so.
you're gonna beat all the Russian snipers.
Oh, I think I would thrive on that. I
Really?
think I would thrive on that.
They put the people that actually kill people into their contests.
Right. All is to be said. Yeah, archery or
Archery or
curling.
curling? Curling.
Curling.
You know what? Here's the deal. We have you ever gone curling?
No, I've never been curling. I've been like
So,
shuffleboard.
so I believe he could correct me if I'm wrong. Probably not listening right now, but I could ask him. I believe my brother might live by a curling place.
Oh, whoa. That'd be pretty cool. They're
Yeah.
close to Canada. He's close to Canada, so that makes sense.
Well, it's like a bowling alley. Like, I don't know. Washington's kind of nuts.
What's like an
Oregon's
ice?
kind of
It's
nuts
like
right now.
it's like an ice skating thing, or it's like on ice though, right? Curling's on ice, right?
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah, but you like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's
Okay. Do you
like
have any
darts that you can correct.
more?
No, I'm good.
Oh no, that was it, right?
Yep.
That was it. Dope. All right, guys. Well, enjoy the Olympics this season. Honestly, this is probably the season I've watched it the least out of any seasons. Um, I think it's just been we've been busy and it just hasn't been that easy to watch.
You
I don't
could
know why.
I haven't watched any of the Olympics. None of it.
Yeah, I haven't watched much, not much at all,
I
not
did
much
have
at
someone
all.
get mad at me for making a comment about the Olympics. And an old college, or not old college, an old army guy that made some joke about the. It wasn't even really a joke. It was a joke about the headline of the women's soccer teams kneeling
Oh
because
yeah.
they had said we're not going to stand for any political or racial or whatever out like speaking out. Like just we're just going
Mhm.
to make it all fine. Well, then they all started doing that and they're like, "Well, that's not really political or racial or whatever." And his comment was like, "It's fine. I don't care what they do, but don't say it's not any of those things because it's all of those things combined." And I said, "Well, nothing has to make sense these days, you know, dot 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 COVID," just as a joke to him because we
Mhm.
were roommates and we
Mhm.
just BS'd about all kinds of things. Somebody
Yeah.
that I knew got really, really mad about that statement was like, "You don't know anything about soccer. You don't know what's going on and whatever." I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, back up. It's a little strange. Like, I'm just making a comment to this guy. Well, it's a public forum. Like, you said that thing." I'm like, "Yeah, but I wasn't making any statements of
Oh,
fact or
dude, you gotta be
misinformation or
careful,
anything."
man. You start people don't know. You can't
People go
read stuff on
nuts.
social media like
Okay,
that, man.
no, 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 yeah. But if it was someone random, which at first I thought it was, and I was like, I just fully expected someone random, but it was somebody that I knew that was like freaking out. And I'm like, look, 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 look.
You
If
should have just
you're
said, "Give me a call." I'm not
I
gonna.
did. I did
We,
say that. I said I'm
oh,
not going to
good,
argue this,
good.
and because they were saying like, "Well, this is a public space," and you made a public comment. I'm like, I'm not going to argue with you about this on here, but I will say because you know me, it's a little weird that you stepped into just a little flippant thing between me and an old army buddy because you should know better.
You said
And,
that?
yeah, they did no other comments after that.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe they'll listen to
Oh, dude,
this.
I could never get it. I could never do a Facebook conversation. I couldn't.
Oh, I wasn't arguing with them at
It would
all.
be so hard for
All I
me.
argued was, hey, look, we were joking with each other, and we both like liked each other's comments, and we just know each other. Like that's it. The end. There
The
is
end. Bye.
no, there is no
Yeah.
anything about it. I'm not gonna
Uh,
argue. If you want to call and talk to me, that's fine. But
that'd be so hard for me. It'd be so. I just would want to just hear their voice and have
oh
them hear
yeah,
mine.
well that's why I wasn't
Uh,
gonna argue with him. I wasn't arguing.
yeah.
I was just saying it is weird that you kind of stepped in here. Like you could see our relationship on Facebook. Like you know that we're just joking with each other. Like let's play a game called People Can Joke and Talk.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair. Oh
Fun
man.
times.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to the good old episode 108,
Wait,
Bucko 8.
hang on. To answer my mom's last question, no.
Oh, shit, question. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Good. Um, and we appreciate you guys so much. We appreciate being able to have this platform to have fun conversations and sometimes challenging, but also sometimes light. And it's just always
Fun.
a pleasure to break down life and the most recent events. So,
And what other
um,
countries are gonna go nuts this week, guys?
I know,
We'll find
really,
out.
seriously, we'll let you know. All
Mm-hmm.
right, guys. Well, let us know what you like. Let us know what you don't like. Subscribe on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. I think it's Spotify.
TikTok,
You can actually get us on Spotify
OnlyFans.
too. OnlyFans, Spotify. Yeah, that's right. QAnon,
Yeah,
and all of them. So,
the Donald Duck
um,
Gov.
Donald.gov. That's right.
Yep.
DuckDuckGo. Find us. Look us up.
Duck
All
Gov.
right, guys.
Slightly different. Google kicked us off, guys. They don't. They
Google
don't even
us off.
like us. They don't even
Just
recognize
kidding.
us as human beings anymore.
All right, guys. Well,
Oh,
we appreciate you. Have a great week. We'll talk to you later.
see
Peace
ya.
out.